Hi everyone, my name is Iris, this is Carlijn and this is Jara, and today we will give a presentation for the course International Strategic Alliances. Strategic alliances have become increasingly important, but these days there are also high level of dissatisfaction related to the outcomes, and many are not successful. International joint ventures are one of the main forms of international strategic alliances. The central question for this presentation is, which resources are the basis for international joint venture success? We use the article from Hitt et al. And Choi and Biermich to answer this question. The outline of the presentation looks as follows. First, I start with definition. The context of these articles both is focused on the difference between emergent and developed countries. Hill et al. Study is on international strategic alliances in general, while Choi and Biermich focus is especially on international joint ventures. Since our main question is related to international joint ventures, we define this as the international joint venture is an organizational entity that represents two or more parent firms, in which the headquarters of at least one parent firm is located outside in the country of operations of the joint venture. To analyze critical success factors within international strategic alliances, both the research-based view and the organizational learning theory help us to understand the success of alliances. The research-based view is used in both articles and argues that alliances are used to develop resources and competences. Both underline the importance of resource complementarity. Firms choose partners from complement them most in terms of resource and skill. The type of resources firms seek will differ between the context of the market. On the other hand, the learning perspective argues that firms wish to acquire knowledge and learn new skills and capabilities. Before we apply the two main theories, we first have to understand the different contexts of the firms. Therefore, we answer the question how emergent and developed markets differ. Emergent and developed markets provide a particular rich setting due to clear contrast in firm characteristics. Related to the institutional theory, prospective firm behavior is embedded in a broader political, economic, and social context that shapes action. To understand different contexts, we will compare the different markets. Emerging markets produce more ambiguity and uncertainty and therefore have less stable economic and social environments, where developed markets are more stable in their economic and social environment. Firms within emerging markets are typically young or recently privatized, and their research endowments are unlikely to be strong. Developed markets consist of more well-established firms with strong managerial capabilities. The financial markets in emerging markets are in formative stages, while in developed markets the financial markets are well developed. There's plenty of capital and investors are available. Emerging markets show high potential for economic growth, where developed markets have less potential for growth. In emerging markets, strategic alliances are a relatively new form of collaboration, while in developed markets, strategic alliances are well established. At last, the technological know-how has a lower level in emerging markets compared to developed markets.
One of the most important steps in building successful alliances is picking the right strategic partner. For the selection, the difference criteria just mentioned have to be taken into account. To explain the differences in the selection criteria of firms from emerging markets and developing markets, we introduced the following figure. As you can see, we distinguish between selection criteria of firms from emerging markets and developed markets. And additionally, there are also some overlapping criteria that are important for both partners. Emerging markets firms often need managerial capabilities and know-how in order to effectively compete in their domestic markets and even more in international markets. Additionally, these firms often have little exposure to modern management concepts, techniques, or processes. Therefore, the emerging market firms are often strongly stressed to partners' financial assets, technical capabilities, intangible assets, and willingness of partners to share their expertise. Developed market firms, on the other hand, seek for local knowledge-related resources. Emerging market firms provide resources, access to local markets, and help develop market firms to learn from local market knowledge. By gaining knowledge about local markets, developed market firms improve their resource endowments. Developed markets firms seek partners, unique competencies and knowledge, and market knowledge and access more strongly than emerging market firms. Very important for both partners are the resources that provide complementary capabilities. We will explain complementary resources later. Emerging market firms search for partners from which they can learn managerial capabilities. As well, developed market firms seek to gain local market knowledge and perhaps the unique competencies of partners. So, as just explained, Hitt et al. Divide the market into emerging markets and developed markets. Shea and Beamish also make this distinction in their paper. Choi and Beamish focus on international joint ventures from the resource-based view. They say joint venture performance is driven by the availability of joint venture partners to create synergy between the two firms by joining complementary resources. In the article, they make distinction between technical related resources and local knowledge related resources, and they state that both resources affect joint venture performance both independently and simultaneously. Choi and Beamish say that partners engage in joint ventures in order to take advantage of each other's complementary resources. Joint ventures are an efficient organization structure for developed and emerging market firms to acquire resources complementary to their own and that are not readily available on the factor market.
Then the local knowledge related resources. These are resources that consist of local market knowledge, and it's about the local culture, customs, and market characteristics. These are resources that are developed by firms that are operating in that market for a while already, so they know the ins and outs and they have experience. So when engaging in a new market, developed market firms are looking for these resources to successfully operate in a new market. And the greater the difference between the developed market context and the emerging market context, the greater the need for local knowledge is. Then the technology-related resources. They can be defined as the resources that are used to develop the joint venture products and the production processes. Firms from emerging markets are mostly looking for these resources because most of the time they do not possess these resources themselves. Between these two resources, the performance of the joint venture depends on the combination of both the technology-related resource and the local knowledge-related resources. So a synergy between those two needs to be created to create a successful joint venture. In the paper, Choi and Beamish argue that both the technology-related resources and the local knowledge resources, that they generate rents because both firms possess resources the other firm doesn't have. So, and those resources are also not easily to access on the market because they are either rare, difficult to get, or valuable. So by two firms combining their resources collectively, they produce greater rents than when both the firms would operate individually. And another way to create synergy within the firm is through co-specialization of the resource of both the partner of both partners. And this means that by combining the resources of the different firms, the overall efficiency will increase and the rent earning potential of both resources will also increase. So when both partners are willing to have their complementary resources co-specialized, the rent earning potential of the combined resources will probably increase. And this resource complementarity can lead to international joint venture success. And just to give an overview of our presentation, firms should carefully select joint venture partners with genuine complementary resources that they don't possess by themselves. They can do this through the partner selection criteria, as mentioned before. And both local knowledge resources and technology-related resources are needed from developed market firms and emergent market firms to create the highest resource complementarity and international joint venture success. Synergy needs to be created through the resource complementarity, and that can be done through co-specialization, as mentioned before. So to answer a question, when both partners within the joint venture are willing to have the complementarity resources co-specialized, the rent earning potential of combined resources will probably increase. So the more co-specialized resources are, the greater the synergy will be generated from the combined use of the resource of both partners' complementarity resources. And then last but not least, an overall answer to our question. That was, which resources are the basis for international joint venture success? So we think that it depends, because from an emerging market firms, they will need the technological capacities and financial assets. Those are most important. While for the developing market firms, local knowledge and related resources are more important. So we can state that the answer will depend on the specific firm perspective. But nevertheless, we came to the conclusion that resource complementarity is the most important factor for international joint venture success. So we think that that will be the answer to the question. So thank you all for watching, and this was our presentation.